throughout the world. Yes?
I agree with everything you just said, and I also was at the World Conference Against Racism.
Tell them who you are, one of our 2Ls.
I'm a law school joint degree Fletcher student, and I was there with UNESCO in the Human Rights Division of UNESCO. And we
will end in 5 minutes, too. Balsa has something at 6:30, right? Where's Inez? I'll be out of here in time, wherever Inez is. Okay.
And I found that the conference and the reporting on the conference very disturbing. And some of the things that happened during the plenary sessions, where you had a country like Belgium stand up and suggest that the words race and racism be put in brackets because scientifically we don't have a meaning for race. Well, what's the Convention Against Racism if you don't have the word racism as part of the convention? But the thing that disturbed me most is when the U.S. left the conference, when they did not participate, first of all, and when they left. And I think that, to me, I was left with the feeling that they just did not care about any of the issues at the conference. They used the Palestinian-Israeli conflict as a scapegoat, which I think was one of the most hurtful things you can do in that situation. And then, you know, all of the other issues, which it was not only race, it was race, poverty, gender, and all of the bases for oppression and discrimination. To me, that said that our country didn't care fundamentally about any of these issues that affect the majority of people in the world. And I think that the September 11th attacks, the question we should be asking ourselves about the attacks is what, even though I believe that, yes, it is wrong to kill innocent people, what is the motivation for the hatred that is pushing people to do things like this? And we need to, as a country, we need to ask ourselves that question. As a world, we need to ask ourselves that question. And we need to deal with that long-term issue, not just join the UN when we need a coalition. That's my, what do you think about that?
I think you're absolutely right. I agree with it. And I'm not saying this to be mean-spirited or offensive, but I'm trying to be factual. And I would love to be proven wrong, but I don't think I am. I think our degree of patriotism is only skin deep, in some respects superficial, right? Because a patriot would say that we're one nation, indivisible, under God, with liberty and justice for all. That's what a true patriot would say, the unifying themes. We all are against something. We are in agreement in being against something, but we're not in agreement in being for something, right? The problems of getting a cab are still there. The problems of renting an apartment in certain neighborhoods are still there. The problems of being profiled are still there. And it feels as if the patriotism is superficial. Man, I felt the pain. I lost a personal friend in the World Trade Center. A student from UDC and a faculty member from UDC, the University of the District of Columbia, where I'm the chairman of the board, died in the Pentagon. And so I've been touched by these tragedies like others in deep ways that it's often difficult to fully express. So there is no sense of putting this aside as as just a theoretical construct, but I still am deeply troubled by what I saw. Yes. Out of the conference?
And that there's some sense of where leadership will come from to help push that agenda along for the next whatever.
That's a very good point. And the answer, is there a product and agenda that comes out of the conference? The answer is that I think yes. And let me tell you what happened concretely that probably wasn't even covered here to any extent. The Congressional Black Caucus has announced that it will host the next World Conference Against Racism here in the United States in the year 2003. And now it's interesting. These are politicians, they're very smart. Now, the year 2003 didn't sort of drop from the sky, right? That's 2 years of planning, but it also happens to be a little bit before 2004. And so they're going to bring it home. What's going on in the world that America needs to see? These NGOs, these governments will all be invited to Washington, not to New York, not to give the typical speeches at the United Nations, but to have serious debate in a very public event. I didn't say this, the NGO conference was held in a stadium, an outdoor stadium, a public event, while the plenary session for the World Conference was held in a very immaculate center. You had to have several forms of ID to go through also metal detectors to get in, and only the delegates could sit in certain areas. And so the concept of the Congressional Black Caucus is to have a true world conference to say, here are all the issues we discussed and left hanging. What's the report card on the world? What has the United States done since August 2001 to address the problems of Kyoto, the Human Rights Commission, paying the dues for the United Nations, which we've agreed to do now, and to being a world partner in world affairs? And this war will answer some of those questions. What are we doing to address the very legitimate questions about the Middle East, how we're going to handle that? But what are we also doing to make the world see and make America see that there are problems throughout the world? We can't solve them all, but we shouldn't be oblivious to the problems that are going on around the world. And so I think that there is actually a healthy document that came out as well with a set of this is what you take away from it. And the final draft hasn't been prepared, but I'll make that available on our Saturday School website and make that available to you. It will certainly be the venue. The only question is whether it will have the blessings of, quote, the government. But I can assure you that elected officials who have family in Ireland or family in France or Germany or China or Latin America are going to want to see these issues. We're a very world country. And yet we keep thinking of ourselves as this 270 plus million people and that we only represent X. We really, New York and this country reflects a lot of the world. And so almost every issue that was represented there has some relevance to a discussion here. Now, of course, we run the problem of being, why would you want to have it on imperialist territory? That's why they had it in South Africa before. But at least the Black Caucus can make sure that the conference is adequately financed this time and to have some of the serious debates and discussions. And what they can do is to say, we can show you the world believes, many people in the world believes that America is the land of the rich, right? And everybody's wealthy, everybody has these big homes, these great cars, these great jobs. And so they want to shed some light on Appalachia and shed some light on South Central and shed some light on Peoria and shed some light on Vermont to show that this is a very complex country and you may see one version of it, but there is a very complicated set of things going on here. And I think that's one of the values of having the conference in the year 2003. And instead of New York and having it in Washington, D.C., where you have a much more open opportunity. And also is going to be important on the reparations when you think about how we have all these monuments and all these efforts to show the great accomplishments of America, but not a single monument anywhere in Washington as a tribute to the hundreds of thousands of slaves who helped build that great city and who contributed so much to our wealth. And so there is a sense of putting the mirror on yourself that I think makes this a particularly challenging opportunity.